Hi there, this is Kevin Tharp, and today we're doing Lab 2, 6 Degrees of Freedom. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to go ahead and clear my sketch. And I happen to use a dark space. You can use whatever you want. I'm using this one intentionally so that everything that I'm doing is going to show up more visibly. So what we're going to be doing today is experimenting to get an idea of what the space that we have available to us without moving. So uh, I'm going to be recording this. I'm planting my feet. I'm keeping my knees bent. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to visualize with the light that you paint with what size space you have to work with when you are at the human scale. So I'm going to be working in the human scale on this so that later on when we are looking at the different scales, you can see the flexibility that comes with the 6 degrees of freedom. So I'm going to start out with I'm just going to use a green. Um, Actually, I'll use a green off of my palette because it's already saved there. And what I'm going to do, and this is the same thing I want you to do for the lab. I want you to reach out your hand directly in front of you. And then what I want you to do is essentially you're going to be doing a stretching and flexibility exercise. So I want you to explore, and we're doing this first with the right hand, and then we'll do it with the left hand. What I want you to do is I want to explore your space just by painting, and it can be a continuous line or it can be a series of lines, and just explore your movement. Now, I've got a ceiling fan above me here. You might have noticed that I encountered that as I went through, so I have to be aware of that. Always be aware of your surroundings. But what I'm doing is I'm just pivoting at my hips to get this perspective of how far I can reach out, and moving my arms, my shoulders, and my hips to see what I can reasonably affect without having to relocate myself. And this will give you an idea of what your sphere of influence is for a stationary position with your body. Now, I've done that with the left hand. Now what I want to do is I want to switch hands here. And so I go into the settings, I swap hands, and I'm going to do, or I did that with my right hand. Now I'm going to do it with my left hand. Now I want to change the color here. So I'm going to switch this to red. And I'm going to do the same thing I just did with my right hand. And I'm going to return to standing in the same spot. And I'm going to do the same thing with my left hand. So the next thing that I want to do, I mentioned that this was at the human scale. So the advantage that this, or what we're trying to see from this, is that we've got this scale that allows us, by grabbing hold of just the space, using the two grab buttons, we can change the scale from the human, which is where I started. I can go to all the way down to the squirrel space by pulling my arms apart, or I can change back to human scale, and I can go all the way up to dinosaur scale. So this artifact is the same size. All I've changed is the scale that I'm viewing it from. But what that allows me to do, so with just a flick of my wrist, when I am at the dinosaur scale, I can go much, much larger than I could if it was at the human scale. And so this is one of the elements that you really have to get a grasp of when you are working with virtual reality, because this is the tool that allows you to really manipulate your environment. And you can go from working in really tiny detail to gigantic detail. And now, while I'm at this scale, this squirrel scale, you'll notice it. I have to do a lot of movement to bring this closer to me. If I go to the human scale, I can, again, I'm gripping the environment, I can pull it closer, but if I go all the way down to the dinosaur scale, I can move the whole thing just with minor movements as compared to the other scales. But what that allows us to do, but so I could, if I was wanting to make that look like something organic, I could come up with this and I could come off of those and I could make it look like a bud or a flower in a tree, inside of a flower. Now, that's at this huge scale. At the other end of that scale, coming back into the middle, and I'll put this at the human scale and bring it so that the camera is inside of the sphere here. You can see that those brush strokes that were pretty, not very large when I was at the other scale are now really large. So that, again, that gives me the ability, and I'm going to change my color here just to, so that you can see a little bit different. And so inside of here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to create sort of a flower kind of something organic. We'll call it a tree. And the other thing that we can do is we can grab entire portions of the scale. So this happens to be the selection tool. And I'm going to grab a few of these. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate those. So while I have them, the select tool, I touch it, and then I can use this to duplicate. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring that down to a smaller size so that you can sort of, hopefully you're seeing what I'm trying to accomplish here is I've got, when I am at the, whoops, it just jumped sizes on me. That does happen sometimes. So there is the squirrel size view of the flower in the middle. And then we've got the human size, which is, again, the entire structure is from the size of me. And then we will go to the, it's glitching on me a little bit here. There we go. The entire thing, so that you see inside of here, that's that little tiny, it shows up tiny now, inside of this larger diagram. And that's what gives you the flexibility to work at both large scale and small scale. And that's where you need to understand the degree of freedom, because there's a lot of flexibility that comes with this. So what I want you to do for this lab is I want you to go ahead and save your sketch. And I want you to take a photo, a snapshot of that. And that's what you'll turn in for the 6 degrees of freedom, is whatever you've created, a photo of that, upload that to the Dropbox for the 6 degrees of freedom.